Lisa O'Connor leads the security research and development for Accenture Technology Lab, where Accenture is one of the largest professional services companies in the world. She will speak about trust with a twist, a digital one. In a world where intelligent machines and humans work side by side, how do we build digital trust? And more to the point, how do we make sure we're worthy of it? Lisa brings a wealth of experience and knowledge in the space, and it is an honor to welcome her to the stage. Please, Lisa.
Thank you. I'm very excited about being here because we've got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about something so fundamental that it transcends geography, it transcends industry, and it transcends people, and that's trust. And what I'd like to start out with is have everyone in the room indulge me. You've been sitting for a while, very quietly, very patiently. What I want you to do, if you don't have it in your hand already, please take out your smartphone. See, some of you already have it in your hands. Take it out. Look, I'm actually asking you to get distracted. All right, now I want you to unlock your smartphones. So many of you have very complex PIN codes. Go ahead and put those in. Unlock your smartphones. Great, y'all ready? All right, now pass it to the person to your left. Now, if there's no one to your left, pass it to the person behind you. Go ahead. Come on, it'll be fun. All right. Now, I want you to keep listening to me, and some of you are going to be distracted because you're worried you just handed your rich digital fingerprint to the person to your left, and you may or may not know that person. So I just want you to sit with that for a minute and think about how that feels. What could the person next to you learn by having that smartphone in their hands? Maybe they would take a look at it and realize you're way behind in your Fitbit steps for the day, and you're completely not meeting your expectations for the team. Maybe they would look at your incoming and outgoing calls and realize you've been dutifully responding to your spouse. What would the browser history tell you, your last sites you visited? That you're in the market for the new car? Maybe that you're here looking at the other leaders at the cybersecurity conference. Maybe you're looking for a new job. So as we think about that, there's a lot that that person could get off that phone just in context and knowledge about you. And if we took that and we added your contacts, maybe the geography identifiers in there to find out where you are, that person would suddenly have a very rich picture of you, maybe even better than your executive admins. So thinking about that, I want everyone to take a deep breath. And the good news is we're in a room of cybersecurity professionals. That should make you feel good. Largely upstanding folks in the room, not going to do any harm to your data. But think for a moment if you weren't handing that off to somebody who you thought had the same moral or ethical obligations or the same posture as you do. And then take it a step further. What if you're not handing it off to a person at all, and this information is now held by an intelligent machine that's going to make decisions about it? And also, I've talked about artificial intelligence, and that's a great lead up to this. What's going to be making the decisions about how that data gets used? Okay, give the phones back to the owners. Everybody take a deep breath. Hopefully nothing happened. But Accenture does a study, and we do a research project every year, and it's called the Technology Vision. And the Technology Vision looks at trends that are disruptive. And one of the things about the Technology Vision is the topic of digital trust was front and center this year, and especially digital ethics. In 2015, we had nobody bring up the word ethics in our surveys. And we do this with our customers, we do it with industry, we do it with other researchers across the globe, and looking at what these topics are. And yet, this year, 33%, a third of the folks we spoke to proactively brought up ethics as a real concern. And then when we went back and we surveyed the participants that help us really formulate those concepts in the Technology Vision, we had 83% tell us that digital trust is the cornerstone, like having trust in who you're interacting with, what businesses you're working with in that new digital economy. And that's not something we had heard before. So let's look a little bit deeper at digital trust. Digital trust is made up of two concepts. So if we think about security and digital ethics. And security, as everybody knows in this room, I don't have to explain what's down there in blue. This is motherhood and apple pie. This is what we know. This is what protects our systems and allows us to do business. And if we think about our strategy so far with digital ethics, most of our companies have been approaching this with a single vector, thinking about privacy, and not really thinking about the broader AI or implications of it. So we have the do no harm tenets, and oh my goodness, within the EU, we have many of them. But we have the anonymity, trust, sharing, all those things that we know and have dealt with for a while within ethics programs and within somewhere between our security, privacy, and risk programs. But the part I want you to focus on is the part from 9 o'clock to noon. And that's the part that's really the more disruptive thinking here. And this is about ethical algorithms. This is about thinking about what we're learning, how we're creating those algorithms and making decisions, and throughout the customer journey. And not only throughout the customer journey, but ideally with the customer's knowledge and consent and an enhanced experience for them. And the other thing that we need to have digital ethics is a taxonomy. A way of talking about this, not only within our companies, but with our business partners. What do we mean by where we are in digital ethics? What do we mean by what's appropriate and how we're going to use the data elements and the decisions and the insights that we get out of our algorithms? And the last thing is we need to establish a code of ethics. So each of our companies may have a stance, and our companies may have different stances, and that's fine. The idea is establishing what this is and allowing that to govern some of your business processes and decisions, because that'll tell you where you have risk or not. And we can look at companies that have done this very well. And digital trust, we've seen it play out in the media for, oh my goodness, the last year and a half, pretty exciting, of the imperative around digital trust. And this is something that Apple took very seriously, and it was something that when they developed their last operating system, not the 7, but prior to that, they put the keys to the kingdom back in the hands of the users, and that was well received by the global community. It was no longer centrally held by Apple. And the exciting part about that is when we got to the questions that were happening about, again, backdoor to the Apple and disclosure and creating that, and you saw that all play out in the US media. We had a lot of exciting questions to ask ourselves. We had a product that was built secure by design. We have a government asking for a backdoor. We had really interesting things and considerations if other countries asked that. Do they do that? How did they consider it? And we all watched this play out in the media, and it was fun. We realized media is covering kind of the tip of the iceberg of those issues, and we're security folks, we're cynical. But the interesting thing about this dialogue and what played out was the consumer voice in this. The consumers demanded the trust. The consumers expected it. And that was something that we saw protests and other exciting things in the marketplace. So the companies that get this right will curate experiences for their customers and win their trust. And the other piece, if we think about artificial intelligence, we can think about some of the exciting examples that we have. And connected car is one of them. So if we think about the autonomous car, that's an exciting area because we all have sort of a vision of taking our hands off the wheel and somehow magically getting somewhere and all the decisions that we made at light speed and the way to get there. But I want you to think about it a little bit differently because there's a catch here. I think we could probably come up with all the wonderful mathematical and physics models for how to make those decisions and how to create the brilliant learning and how to get all the processing power in the car to do those at the right time. We're not there yet. We're getting closer. But the thing that's interesting about this is looking at what learning is happening, and as we add other partners to that car ecosystem, such as insurers or other folks that may have access to that data, how would they be using that data? So the question isn't, do I hit the person in the car to the left of me? That's one person in a car, the family in the car to the right of me. Or do I hit the car that's insured by me? And this is where, when we start to think about ecosystems and where those decisions are being made, we don't know what the unintended consequences of what data we've gathered and shared is. And this is where the real crux of it is. So one of the things that is very clear, many of us are forming platforms or joining in our ecosystem partners and sharing data very actively. And if we looked at the statistics, platform companies are the fastest growing companies. The top 15 companies have a market capitalization of $2.6 trillion. That's phenomenal. And they are growing. And in fact, IDC predicts that in the next 3 years, we're going to have another 500 platform companies formed. And think about Apple, Google, others. That's part of platform companies. But the other part is, think about Monsanto moving to precision agriculture. Think about Philips moving into healthcare. You're joining a lot of other ecosystem partners. So the exciting thing and the challenge for us now is to figure out how we talk to those platform partners. How do we curate a dialogue around digital ethics, how we expect them to behaving or not behaving with our data? Because the one thing we know for sure is we're not going to know how all of our business partners will use our data. We're not going to know all the learnings that come from our data that will come in the future. But it's having the right framework there that we need to do now to make sure we can have that discussion and we've clearly established what our stance is. So where do we begin? As I said, I think the first thing is we need to have a much deeper dialogue with our executives and our leadership on what digital ethics is and what this digital trust is for our brands. That's the first step. The second step is we do need to have our own company's code of conduct and stance on what that is. So a real business decision made on where we think we are in that. And then the next part is we need to share that with our business customers. We need to talk to our platform participants and the groups that we engage with in platforms and make sure we're of an equal eye-to-eye setting and that we have agreements on what we're going to do when we run into those uncharted waters of new learnings. And the last thing, of course, security. We're an enabler to all of it. We need to show how our security programs support the whole ecosystem of digital ethics and data ethics. Thank you.